So what I would like to do, I would like really to invite you to connect whatever I'm going to say to whatever you have already heard from those teachers of the Thinking Approach project. So I'm working right now in a secondary school, and I started working in a secondary school. These were formers 10 and 11, and I'm teaching English. So this will be secondary school students, English and Thinking Approach. As you probably already have heard, the Thinking Approach consists of various technologies, and I was trying to work on developing learners' thinking skills when we work with grammar, so it's grammar technology, and when we work with a self-study, so self-study technology. And during this first year, since everything was absolutely new, as you know, once something is new, you make a lot of mistakes. Okay? That is why during this 1 year I was reflecting on whatever I was doing. I was writing a diary to reflect, to understand my own teaching, to understand the approach. And today I think you are happy to have my mistakes on the screen because I hope that this will allow you to analyze what you should not do in your classroom. So, when we speak about the thinking approach, and within the thinking approach, we speak about teaching thinking explicitly. But what does it mean? You know, it's very easy to say, let's teach thinking explicitly. As far as I understand it now, teaching thinking explicitly means that whenever you come to your classroom and you decide that the traditional approach is over for me today, I will try to work on the development of my learners' thinking skills. What you should do, you should tell your students what is going to happen to them. Because you change in a radical way your way of working. And if your students are not aware of your intentions, then you might face a lot of problems. The second thing which theory says which we should do, when we work with grammar, within the thinking approach, we work with the system. So this is a system with certain parts and with certain activities. And these activities are interconnected. And when you come in your classroom and start working with grammar, inform your students about the system. Show them what's going to happen. What did I do? I have never ever dared to pronounce, my dear students, you know, we're going to work in a little bit different way. The reasons are like this. What you're going to face is going to be this. Never. I just entered the classroom and I started doing whatever was in my head. Of course, the difficulty which I saw, big eyes of my students, asking questions, what's happening, what's wrong, what are we doing, and why we are doing that. And the same was with grammar. I have never shown them the whole cycle. I just brought separate activities, like this, okay? We do sorting, if you have heard about sorting. We try to build a model, let's reflect, you know, say like big splashes, what should we do? Well, as I told you, right now, I believe that's absolutely wrong. If you make dramatical change, you have to be fair with your students. You have to tell them very openly that what's going to happen to them. And if you are afraid to pronounce that we are going to work on the development of your thinking skills, but I would suggest that if you maybe decide to start working with the thinking approach, try to preview less ambitious explanation. Maybe you can say, well, we'll try different activities, they might be difficult, but they will help you to think better, to produce better results, to be more effective, but don't worry about, I don't know, ambiguity that's going to happen in the classroom. So try to be fair. And the same with grammar. Whenever you come with a new system of grammar, try to show them everything, because what's going to happen, they should know. The next problem situation, as you have already heard, when we try to introduce the thinking skills on the lesson, we should follow certain steps. So we should sort of structure our lessons according to some common steps, common elements. First, students should face the problem. Then they should formulate the learning goals. What do they want to do with this problem? For example, I don't know how to distinguish, let's take Irina's example with modal verbs. I don't know what's the difference between all these modal verbs. That's my problem. Okay, now formulate your learning goal. The next step was try to build a solution to solve this problem, collect banks, then try out your model which you have built, and then reflect on the process. So if you remember, the thinking task framework, 3 steps. When we try to organize the non-linear process of the teaching learning process, and when we work with the thinking approach, we work with technologies. And these technologies are interconnected. So grammar technology, we work with grammar, we work with text, we work with the self-study, and they are all interconnected because they are united by some common elements. What did I do? I have never ever had this similar structure for my lessons. Today I decide that we'll try to face a problem. Okay, everybody faced the problem, and then I don't understand what to do with this problem. I just jump to the traditional teaching, something which I am used to, and I start explaining them how to solve this problem in a very, very traditional way. So no formulating learning goals, no building solution, just a problem. Next time, I decide that, oh, today I can try to build a solution with them. So I start building the solution. So it's never the same system, it's never the same 3 steps. That was my mistake. I could not come with the same structure. And as far as I'm working with the 2 systems, grammar and self-study, I have never ever showed that they overlap. There were never common elements. Today we work with grammar. This is something separate from the self-study. These are never together. And that is absolutely wrong. These are systems, and we have to try to show explicit connections, how they interconnect and overlap. But I think that it is really very difficult when you only start working with a thinking approach to structure your lessons in a very similar way, to follow all the 3 steps. And maybe my possible solution might sound too general, but I believe that we should be aware of the need, all the time be aware of the need to structure our lessons in the same way. Of course, it is easier to try elements, but if you are not going to use the same structure all the time, your students will never get used to the same structure. Once you will ask them to build a solution for the problem, they will tell you, why do we need to build it? Let's open the book, all the answers are there. And also one of the problems when you only start working, maybe this is my personal problem, but you always think about being perfect. You want to be perfect, everything should be perfect, students should come with the correct answers right straight away. Don't aim at being perfect all the time, but try to be consistent with your principles. If you decided that you will try with your students to formulate the learning goals, try to do it every time. Maybe not on a very perfect level, but every time it should be present, because they should see that this is part of your teaching system. That's what you do every time, and they will get used to it. Maybe first they will complain, but then they will get used to it. They will understand why you need this. Next, problem situation, which I think is very, very important. As I have already mentioned, this is probably the step 2 of the thinking task framework. So when we work with grammar, as it has already been mentioned several times, mentioned and re-mentioned, we try to make our students make hypotheses to collect a bank which has to be analyzed, for example, a bank of sentences. Then they analyze this bank, they come up with a hypothesis with a possible solution, and then you make them check this solution. To check, to adjust, to reflect. So the process seems to be clear. But what is the difficulty for the teacher? I believe that we think about grammar as a certain strict set of rules which has to be learned, to be understood, and then to be practiced. I don't think, at least I have noticed about myself, that I think about grammar as a system. And I have never had in my learning experience, being at school or being at university, I have never had the experience of building something. I have never ever collected banks of sentences, which means this is not part of my personal experience, and which makes it very difficult to get rid of this rule-like thinking about grammar, that there is a rule and that there is a correct answer. It's very difficult to get rid of it. and to start thinking about grammar as a system, as a need to feel this need to collect sentences, to feel this need to analyze sentences. Why should I, as a teacher, do this if I have all these rules? Okay? And that's why what I think should every new teacher do is to try to make building models part of your experience. I suggest that you forget all the rules that you have learned if you teach language. For example, you take one topic, modal verbs. Forget everything you know about modal verbs. Collect sentences. That's what you will try your students to do. You will ask them to collect sentences. But first do it yourself. Collect the sentences. Analyze these sentences. Try to analyze them. Try to build a model yourself. Try to go through this cycle, which you will then later on try to make your students go through. Then what is important, after you build this model yourself, try to reflect on the algorithm of how you build the model. No, you don't know the rules. Remember, you don't know them. You built a solution. How did you do that? And only then try to think about the procedures for students, how you will help your students to come up with the same solution, not the same solution, here I'm wrong, with a possible solution, with a hypothesis. And what is more important, once you arrive at a certain model for yourself, you restructure your understanding of grammar a little bit, you try to work with banks, you try to analyze, forget about the model which you have created. This is not the correct answer which you want your students to come up with. There are no correct answers. There are only hypotheses, and there are only exercises to verify the hypothesis. And I will right now show you my models, how I was trying to restructure my understanding of grammar. So here we were working with speaking about past. As you see, these are not set of rules which can be found in the course book. I was trying to analyze it by parameters. I was trying to, this is not a bank, but this is the first maybe step towards the bank when I put one example, yes? But I thought about collecting more sentences to prove my own hypothesis. And I think it will really be easier for you to work with your students if you forget about linear rules, and if you forget about the correct answers, and make building a model part of your experience. Okay, the next problem situation is also connected with our interesting way of thinking. So as I have already explained, we are working with grammar as a system. For example, a system to speak about the past. There is a system which will help you to work with modal verbs, reported speech, if I'm not mistaken. And all these systems are available on the website thinking-approach.org. So they exist as ready-made materials. But you should know that every system consists of 7 parts, and in every part there are, I don't remember how many activities, so quite many activities, so it's a huge system. And I believe that very often we as teachers are so happy with the fast food material, we would like to take this material, to bring it to the classroom, to give to students, it should work. I was expecting that as well. I just took the material, wow, I had the system, let's try to make this system work. Unfortunately, this does not work. Don't expect fast food solutions. What you have to do, you have to rework the system, re-understand it, and try your own way of working with this material, adjust it to your own context. So the possible solution, how you can maybe rebuild this fast food system, which you really expect to work. Try to maybe break it down, try to put the aim, your first aim, to make students experience the new procedure, how they should work through the whole cycle with the system, and how you as a teacher should work through the whole cycle. So the first step, you just don't give them 5 exercises with 20 sentences. They will never be able to sort everything at once. You will never be able to cope with it. Well, at least I was not able. Maybe you will be. I believe in you, you will be, yeah. So you analyze only 10 sentences, very small portion. And then you ask your students to make their hypothesis on the basis of maybe this very, very small analysis. They make their hypothesis. And then you give them very small exercise to check their hypothesis. very small. I was given quite a lot. I don't know, maybe that's my personal problem. After they did the exercise, you can tell them, okay, do your hypotheses work? If they work, it's perfect. You give them another exercise where they won't work. If they don't work, you say, okay, adjust maybe your hypothesis. It might be wrong. And once you give them to check the hypothesis for the second time, you should bring them to the first success. They should really understand that some of the hypotheses work. Because if they do not have this feeling of success, they will keep wondering what's happening. It doesn't work, explain us the rules. So I believe that it's really very important to show them little success, that something works here. Because I have experienced it in one of my classes which are weaker, and I think that when discussing this issue within the TE teachers group, we say that normally weaker students are more eager to work with something new, because they don't know the rules, and you help them to build the rules, so it's easier with them. So the weaker class was working hard, they were doing everything I was saying, they were following the procedure, and in the end they saw the success. More, as I say, successful class, they were sitting like this because they knew some rules. They were never making the actual analysis, and in the end there was no success, and they told me, okay, our hypotheses don't work, give us the correct answer. I say, there are no correct answers. How is that possible? There are not correct answers. So make your hypothesis. What if it is wrong? I say, then you will adjust it and you will make another hypothesis. No, I want the correct answer. That is why the first success is really important. The fifth problem citation. Probably for every teacher to evaluate the result is very, very important. When we speak about thinking approach, we speak about the teacher who has at least two aims when he enters the classroom. The first aim is connected with developing learners' language skills, language teachers, language skills, of course. The second aim, since this is the thinking approach, should be connected with developing your learners' thinking skills. And consequently, when you start doing your evaluation, you should do evaluation on two levels. You should evaluate both language skills and thinking skills. It can't be in any other way, because otherwise the thinking skills loses its weight. Why do you need to have it as your aim if you don't evaluate it? And here, under the thinking skills, because I think that this is really quite difficult to understand what does it mean, thinking skills. But as far as I understand it, within the thinking approach, when we speak about thinking skills, we speak about these specific models which help our learners, thinking models or tools like ENV, like system operator, maybe you have heard about it, which help our learners to build solutions. So you have to check how well they actually, how many models they know and how well they can use them. But since this is your first year and this is your first try, of course, you are not even thinking about evaluating thinking skills. You might be happy with some kind of a result, language result. There is some difference in the quality of what they produce, but what is there to evaluate? And I have never been focusing on evaluating the process, because it's really difficult. I wanted the correct answer. The correct answer was there. I thought we worked well on their thinking skills, probably, I don't know, but the language was fine. No correct answer. I was a bad teacher. Okay? But, well, as you can see, the problem is that really in the very beginning, it's not that clear what is this thinking. Because nowadays we speak about a lot of thinking. Critical, creative, and we have a real mixture in our heads. But what I would invite you to do, here there is the website where actually all those thinking skills and dispositions are nicely described by Alexander and Nikolai Khomenko. And this is really another very, very long text. I have never been able to understand it from the very beginning. But I kept going there from time to time, just to recheck my understanding and especially to build on my practice. Because I have been doing something, I have my experience working with thinking tasks. Okay, I come back, I recheck. What does it mean, thinking? What do I want to evaluate? What do I want my learners to be able to do? Anyway, even if you are not evaluating thinking skills, keep setting your aim. That every time there should be some specific thinking aim. For example, to help your learners build solution with the help of the EMV. You want to see how they do the element, name and value feature. And try to focus not so much on the result, that they brought you the correct answer. Forget about the word, the correct answer. And the last problem situation, and it's probably, again, too many mistakes, you see? I have to reflect on it. Maybe this is not very well structured here, but I just wanted to mention, because I was speaking a lot about grammar, but I was working also with a self-study. And when we work with a self-study, we work with students' portfolios. So they make their portfolios, whatever they are doing during the year, they make their portfolios that are actually evaluated at the end. And here the trap is, what actually do you evaluate? Do you evaluate a collection of papers, which they just put in the portfolio? Or do you actually evaluate the process of the learning? But how to evaluate the process? Whatever they do, they have to reflect on it. After, for example, you try to work on a system of grammar tasks, make them reflect on the process of working with a system of grammar tasks. If there are no reflections in the portfolio, I think it loses a very important sense of it. It loses its sense at all, probably. It's just a collection of papers. Don't focus on papers, focus on reflections, how students think about what they were doing. I just wanted, maybe I was not very encouraging with all my mistakes, but as Natalia has correctly said, we are happy to have problems. And I think we should encourage our students also to be happy about mistakes, because it means that they have so many things to learn yet. And just to encourage you as well a little bit, don't think that mistakes destroy you. Don't think that they prevent you from your professional development. If you reflect on your mistakes, they will actually bring you to your top, to a very high professional level.